That's right, today we're talking about WWE 2K25. I was very lucky to play it this week, and as we always do, thank you very much for 2K for having me down. I will go over the footage that I have shot, because I know that's what you mostly want to see. You want to see what's going on here, and I can provide you with some context. Now remember, it is a yearly sports game, yearly sports franchise, so the improvements are there, but maybe you're not going to get a massive feel for them just by looking at the screenshots and the footage. But I can tell you in terms of gameplay, I thought reversals were better, I thought it played faster, and I was very happy that the chain wrestling is back. I'm terrible at it, but the one thing I think you can always do with the WWE games and all games is try and simulate the product that you're trying to replicate. So that kind of stuff is always good. Now, it's a crazy thing to start with, but of course I chose Roman Reigns as the first person I wanted to use. And now, maybe this was in last year's game and I didn't muck around with it enough. I don't think it was. But getting to play with the camera angles, especially when Roman's entrance is like 94 minutes long. So look how slow he walks. He's in no rush whatsoever. So getting to muck around with the camera angles, and again, there are predetermined ones. The best is when you can actually go freeform with the camera. And as I'm doing now, just wiggling it around, Roman Reigns' butt. Essentially, that's one that's obviously pre in the game already, looking from the crowd's point of view. But you can zoom in on the Euler Fowler, and I can't remember if I recorded it at the time. I just went nuts at one point. I was going into the crowds, I was flying around the place, and you can do that in matches too, which I will show you later. But given some of the content that the really impressive community comes up with when it comes to the WWE games, I think this could be awesome. And if you want to be one of those people that does upload WWE footage and you create your own events, or you have WrestleMania 30 or whatever, and you change all the results, but you want to make it as similar as to what people saw in terms of the presentation, I think you'll be able to do all of that. And it's always the way with the WWE games, I think. I mean, I've ruined it here, obviously, by going crazy with buttons. But I think when you see the entrances is when you get an idea. They would push the engine a bit harder, the visuals a little bit better, the graphics, to use the classic word had improved. But also, I picked Seth Rollins as my opponent because his Royal Rumble 2022 version is in the game. I think that is correct. And of course, he has his Shield entrance, which means he does come out of the crowd. You cannot muck around with the camera controls here, as I tried desperately. But I just enjoy as always, I kind of know the people that make the 2K games. I've had a few conversations with them over the years. I mean, since they took it over in like 2012, my gosh, it's been a long old time. And they really care about this stuff. Like, they're massive nerds, they're massive geeks in a good way. And I did see some criticism of some people on the internet, because I always like to see what's out there and what people know, of people thinking, I think IGN released Jey Uso's entrance. And I don't know if there is going to be a version when he comes out the crowd. This would say to me that there is. And there's going to be multiple entrances for everybody. But even if there's not, I did see some people go, oh man, the crowd aren't reacting in the right way. And maybe that can be true visually. But I can tell you, even before I'd seen that, when I was just playing it, I'm not sure if it's going to come across with me ranting and raving over the top of it. I actually thought, and I've talked about this, you can go back to my old videos, I always used to mention it, I actually think the crowd react way better than they do in terms of who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Big moves happen here. Oh my gosh, there's a run-in. There was certainly a WWE entry, it was probably the 2K21 for obvious reasons, where sometimes major things would happen and nobody seemed to care. And obviously that's the secret sauce of professional wrestling. You need it to feel like you are in an arena with thousands of people. And once more, I'm going to keep saying this, but it's the only way I know how to say it. I don't know whether it does come across, but just the little things. It moves better, it felt. It's just a fun game to play. I'll get into my crazy multi-person match I did later, which obviously is another new feature. But you can just tell there's been incremental steps forward. I thought last year's game was very good. So when we do have the entire suite, if all the new modes, because there's the island, I don't know what you call it at this point, but whatever that's going to be, if that's awesome, that will add a whole new wing to what you can do in WWE. But as long as there's lots of those, I think it probably will worth your time. All I can tell you is that I enjoyed playing it. And obviously here I'm mugging off Seth Rollins, because why wouldn't I do that? He's the person that turned Roman Reigns into the head of the table to begin with. Otherwise, you know the deal though. Obviously, the signatures are all there, the finishes are all there. It's the same button presses. I do like that. I do want to mention reversals. I remember that happened. I thought that was cool. It's easier for you to do reversals, but it also seems like this is how I want to, with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. Now, I played last year's game so much, but I forget what's new and what's not new. But the fact that I went for the Superman punch, Seth Rollins ducked, I hit the roll up, he hit the roll up on me, and then I reversed it 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's all WWE is. Have you watched Raw? So in that sense, a massive tick box. Now, of course, the Bloodline are on the cover. Roman Reigns is on the cover, and you have the showcase mode that's all about the Bloodline. I'm not going to stay on these videos too long because who knows how YouTube will deal with it, but I am going to say, in terms of the little videos that connect them all together, Paul Heyman is so damn good, it's worth, when you do play this, checking them out. It just adds so much flavor and context. Otherwise, though, yeah, the matches that we were able to play, I'll go through all of them now, was Nia Jax versus Lyra Valkyria at King of the Ring, or Queen of the Ring in this sense. Now, I will say I like this because Nia Jax isn't technically part of the Bloodline, but the story they're telling here is about the literal Bloodline, I suppose. And this was the match which ended with Lyra going for that powerbomb at the corner when Nia Jax did squish her with the Annihilator. Now, the really cool thing, and I know we've done this for years, maybe it's just more exaggerated in a good way this time. It really did feel like Lyra was the smaller competitor and Nia was the larger competitor. Listen, as a dude that was brought up on No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 and WCW versus NWO Revenge, you're never going to be able to do that enough for me, and I think it does tie into wrestling too. You obviously have all your objectives like always, but I will say, I've talked about this before, and some people disagree with me, more power to you. Again, when you get to the finish of this match, which was a brilliant finish, the game does kind of take over. I do understand it because it's a mode. If you just want free-form wrestling, there's thousands other places you can do it. But sometimes, look, I'm not a developer, so there may be a chance it just isn't possible. It would be great if I could be the person that, you know, reverses the powerbomb into the big squish annihilator, but it's not important. So you get to do that one, and you get to go back to the Royal Rumble 2022. Here we've got the I punch you, you punch me. 2K have a name for it, I've forgotten it, but it's quick time events. There's nothing wrong with quick time events, I find them fun. Especially this as well. Every time I engage in one, when I do miss my well or poorly timed X-Press, I get annoyed at myself because I'm a very strange individual. But, you know, this is the match where nobody really lost and nobody really won. We kind of left it ambiguous, I guess, which Seth Rollins has talked about ever since. Now, I didn't do this because I won. We did the whole choke spot, and then I was meant to do my super spear, and then I just choked. I just choked Seth Rollins out. But of course, the idea is if you want to change the ending, you can. And that's what the game, you know, allows you to do. That was an amazing, amazing stomp. I think I kicked out a 1. Because is it 1? Yeah, it was a 1. That's right. I know what I'm doing. And again, pretty sure you can do the tap mini game. You can do obviously the flip up on the right stick. I much prefer that one. I just find it easier. But this is the other thing you can do in the showcase. Now, a lot of them were blanked out. But there is a third one, which kind of gives us an idea of the direction 2K is going in. That's a bit nuts. Because it is the Wild Samoans versus the Dudley Boys. Now, of course, the Wild Samoans have long been retired ever since the Bloodline story started. But I think it's very nice from a legacy point of view and a historical point of view, and just a wink, nudge, nudge to the past point of view that they are included. And I guess the cool thing about it is, because the showcase is meant to be explaining exactly what the Bloodline is once again from a real life level, comparing it to the Dudley Boys, who are a team that a lot of new fans are going to be well versed in, kind of gives you an idea of how Alpha and Seeker made their way through the WWE. And again, the Paul Heyman video in between that also has Roman Reigns on it, they really, really sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They give you a lot of information and they give you a lot of details, maybe more than I was expecting. And it's a tables match. I don't want to be that guy, but trust me, when the Wild Samoans were running wild, the stupid thing for me to say, I'm not 100% sure they're in tables matches. This made me laugh as well. Devon was going to the top rope, so I was like, well, I'm going to give you a back suplex, Devon. And I guess because the environment is better than it once was, we go to give him the back suplex, and he went through the table and I won. So I didn't do any of the objectives. But I do like that because I'm going to keep going on about this. If the showcase mode is meant to be your story mode, it's meant to be your single mode, it's meant to be the one where you have a challenge, maybe you can approach it in the sense, oh my gosh, I've got to be careful of my surroundings, use that word again, otherwise I'm going to end a match. I didn't mean to end a match, but at least I won. Backstage brawls are also back as well, so of course I picked Jacob for 2 and Dominic Mysterio, but I did have a reason behind this because I used Dominic Mysterio later as well. Obviously, both guys have a certain way to them, hence why I just picked Dominic Mysterio up. I was desperate to throw him in the ambulance. I did throw him in the ambulance later. It may be this time. I think, yeah, Dominic got out before I do it, but I did do it later. So you can still do all that stuff again, the ambulance match. I'm sure we'll be back, but I haven't seen it. But, you know, when you do pick a specific character, you want to make sure they have the nuances that make them a persona. Absolutely true with Dominic Mysterio, but doubly true for Jacob for 2. It's just the way he walks, the little movements, the craziness he has, the unbridled rage. I missed that, so I pushed the wrong button. I just killed Dominic by throwing him in the floor. But listen, I think the NXT parking lot is in here. I can't remember if that was there last year. Maybe it was. Again, I don't sit down and bullet point every single thing. But ultimately, the backstage brawls feel very similar to where they were before. There's a few new weapons. There are a few sort of new things to interact with. But once again, it felt more like we're iterating here and we're building on it, but which is what we should do. They haven't been back for all of that long. And who doesn't want to be able to pick up Dominic Mysterio, obviously the greatest wrestler in the world right now, and throw them into a back of an ambulance? But the one thing that I will keep going down on before we do talk about intergender wrestling, which I think is going to be one of the huge talking points there is about this game, it's just enjoyable. And I like the button mashing. I like the track and field. I never want that to go away because there was one game in particular when we tried to make it a bit more fun. Why the hell? Oh no, it looked like I looked at the pause menu then. Nope. I was mashing X so hard I pushed start because even though I'm an old man, I am that guy. Just want to show you some of the chain wrestling as well. Again, I mean, you don't see much of it because I do know what I'm doing. I'm just not very good at it. And of course I picked Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso just to be that guy. And I will tell you this. Actually, let's just jump forward a bit because while their WrestleMania 40 clash obviously has now become a big old talking point, I had a right banger here. Honestly, I don't know whether it's the way that Jey Uso moves. I don't know whether it's the way that Jimmy Uso moves. But I really had some near falls towards the end of this and doing splashes to the outside. I really got into it. And I would say beforehand, I'm experimenting with the showcase. I'm experimenting with all sort of other things that we have added. But when I did this, I realized that I was enjoying myself and I was having a good time. Now listen, I'm not the greatest at the game, so people get a bit annoyed about that. Throw people into the ring post. And the super kicks in the game are awesome as well. Now this is something I do remember from the old school days, for lack of a better term, is that sort of powerful hits really felt like they impacted. And it was Jacob for 2 super kick especially, which I believe is his hard attack when you do hold the A button. But I found that Jey Uso's got a really good sort of like fake super kick when it hits you with a real super kick. And there you go, you hit him with the splash 1, 2, 3. But yeah, it was just by this point, maybe I just sort of settled back into the controls. Maybe I got used to the new elements they were throwing at me. But I was like, yeah, okay, I can see it. It plays well. It's going to be fun. Now let's talk about it. Because I did a 10-person Royal Rumble. Now that's right, WWE 2K25 has brought back intergender matches, as I think that's Jey Uso enters. It is Jey Uso. And fans have been asking this for a while. I totally understand why. I think the way we've kind of justified is everything between Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley. Here as well, you can, because I chose to be The Rock and I hadn't come in yet, you do just get to muck around with the cameras. But how cool is this? Like, the fact they give you such freedom, I think, is a massive tick because it's a risk. Something could go wrong. But, you know, if you just want to have your AI or your computer, I should say, take over and have a match and you're not even involved and you just want to be the cameraman, I think it really does give you some, I can't think the right word, but some leeway and some space to do whatever you want. I mean, who would ever shoot Jade Cargill coming into the Rumble like that? But of course, you know, you've got a Wild Samoan in there, you've got a Jade Cargill in there, you've got, okay, Natalia was in there, Nia Jax is in there, and there is no rules. There's nothing you can't do. Right now, Jacob for 2 and Jade Cargill are fighting. Now, do I think that there are going to be portions of the wrestling fan base that abuse this and probably ruin it for the rest of us? Yes, but I think it goes, the reason I wanted to put it in here is because I think it ties back into that thing I just talked about, camera cuts and being the producer or being the cameraman. At one point, I did go nuts with the camera and pretended I was Kevin Dunn, which is a terrible joke and I should be ashamed of myself. I didn't grab it, but The Rock's entrance is awesome. I think that's already on the internet. You'll enjoy it. It's so over the top. But this is what I mean. Nia Jax just absolutely kneeing the hell out of The Rock and then throwing him around. There was something, listen, I understand intergender wrestling isn't everybody's cup of tea. The way that I've always approached intergender wrestling, let's just take Nia Jax and The Rock and whoever their agent is in the back and Triple H, I suppose. If they all sit down and decide they want to do it, who am I to make that kind of a decision? And again, if it's for you, great. If it's not for you, great. But I just think that as long as people treat it in the way that it is meant to be treated, it really does feel like a unique brand new element of the game, even though all you're really doing is unlocking, you know, 2 people clashing together. And I guess it kind of does tie into where WWE is right now, because if you do want to replicate everything between Rhea and Dom and Liv and Raquel, etc., then you're going to be able to do it in the game, and there'll be sort of some legacy stuff that you'll be able to recreate as well, because WWE has done it. Like, I don't know if Baron Corbin is going to make it into the game. It'd be a massive shame if he's not, but obviously he did get released. But if you were able to do, I mean, Lacey Evans is not going to be in it, but again, actually it doesn't even matter who's in it, because the creation community will make them anyway. So maybe you could do the Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch from Extreme Rules a few years ago, should you so wish. Now, the Royal Rumble, to me, felt the same as it always has done, but it was an absolute barrel of laughs. Especially because I think Jey Uso threw me out at the end. I was like, does the game know what is going on? But it was just, again, when I'm sat there and I'm laughing away, I'm a bit like, well, it must be doing something right, because the major reason to play any wrestling game is to be entertained. And I can only imagine, obviously I was playing with 9, again, computer-controlled opponents here. You get your friends around, maybe you do it online. We don't know anything about the online functionality at the moment. Hopefully it will continue to progress. But it was just a laugh, as us British people say. And I can't remember where it is in the footage, but when Jade Cargill, I think I was LA Knight, booted me right in the face. And I think Rhea Ripley was the third person in that, and she won. I was like, you know what? This is going to work out just fine. Right, I did find it. Yeah, it was Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan versus LA Knight. And this was just another match. The last 5 minutes when everybody was hitting their finishes, and here Liv Morgan just went and got a chair. Don't get me wrong. It's still, I understand people fall on either side of the fence with this. I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're playing with mates, being able to break up covers all the time is awesome. In the story mode, or if you're playing My Rise or whatever, sometimes it's, I guess the computer, I don't know if the computer is too good or not good. No, it's not good enough. But can you say it's too good? That seems somewhat redundant. But sometimes you just want to make the pin, and there's always somebody there to break it up. But I think that probably ties into the meters and the stamina bars this year. You really do have to wear somebody out, and you really do have to focus on someone. And that kind of goes back to the showcase mode too. And I know that we did this in 2024 as well, 2024. But it's sort of, you know, focus on the neck, focus on the ribs, focus on the legs. Actually keep an eye on the, I don't know what you call it, but the individual pain meter you have in the bottom right for everybody's health bars. And if you want someone to stay down, then focus on the limb where you want them to stay down. Eventually they will stay down, which is professional wrestling. But not in my wildest dreams did I ever think I was going to be able to do, like I say, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley versus LA Knight in Queen of the Ring arena, by the way. And that's the arenas we got to play. It's the brand new SmackDown arena from last year. It's Royal Rumble 2022, Royal Rumble 2024, and the Queen of the Ring. I think there may have been a WrestleMania in there too. I can't remember. They'll all come flooding out soon anyway. And I did get to play the underground mode, but we can't talk about it because I believe the embargo is at the weekend. We just have to come back at the weekend. I just wanted to show you this too, because they did do Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair for obvious reasons. It's a match that's going to happen. And it's just these small things. Jade go for the springboard. I'm able to dodge it. And then obviously I have a finisher stored, so I'm like, sweet. I'm going to hit it with my finisher. I'm going to hit it with my KOD. I bring it up, absolutely smash her right on her head, and I get the pin. It's just small things like that. With the twist being that I didn't get the pin and she kicked out. She didn't really. I just wanted to trick you. Although there was a KOD around about 2 minutes before that where I had worked Jade to the bone, for lack of a better term, as my footage stops, and she still kicked out. And I think that's an attribute that the new 2K games do very good. Sometimes you're convinced that it is going to be the end, and it's actually not. And we're not going to get into the roster here anyway because people will beat me to it. But again, it's the small things. This is a four-way between Sol Ruka, Kalani Jordan, Naomi, and Nia Jax. You absolutely could not do that last year. And Ethan Page in the game too. I don't think he was in the game. Well, no, he wouldn't have been in the game last year. And I'm a big fan of seeing people that have busted their ass get their moment to see themselves replicated digitally, because it must blow their brain. And I should have done Sol Ruka's finisher, which I can't remember the name of now. And I didn't do that because I'm an idiot. Also, I was controlling Naomi because I just wanted Naomi to win a match. It rarely happens. Here we got Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu fighting out in the NXT parking lot too, because why wouldn't you book that match there? And I do pick him up, and I do powerbomb him through a table, because obviously Roman Reigns is like Jacob Fatu, so we may as well murder him in the NXT parking lot. So, you know, it's so hard to, unless you want to sit down and get into the nitty gritty, and I think other people can do that better, so just murder him with a kendo stick. Obviously, we need to play it more. I probably had about 2.5 hours on with the game. Obviously, only played a few game modes, but I do think WWE these days, I think the gameplay is where it wants to be. You just want to keep shifting it onwards, and maybe the crowd needs a big redo at some point. I don't know. You're going to have to debate that. But I think if the overall suite and all the modes do hit, and whatever this island mode is, I'm really intrigued about this island mode. And again, I can't go into it until all the information does come out. But if that kind of feels like the big addition that we have done to 2K25, and it's enough to really make you go, oh my gosh, I need to play that. I know that some people like to go, I'll do one game 1 year, leave it 2 years, then I'll jump back in. It's just, I remember the fast was 2K20, whichever one it was. I get the names confused because they're always changing them. But we have come so far since then, and you and I'll get onto a box, onto the concrete. You know, what a great thing to do. I just think that it's in a good place right now. I enjoyed it last year. Again, we got to do all the social content with My Rise, and I thought that was good. So as long as we continue to bring those stories in, there is a screenshot doing the rounds of Becky Lynch kind of deciding, the submissions are back as well when you do the twirly. But I think the tapping track and field's back too. But there's like a branching storyline thing that 2K have always played with. I hope they lean into that more. I think it could be awesome if you could go completely right and completely left. But I am confident is what I would say about that. And if things change, I will tell you, of course. I don't want you to spend 50, 60, 70 bucks, whatever the flub it is, for a game and not be into it. But with all the creation stuff I'm sure they're going to bring in, the brand new roster, all the modes, they run around like an idiot, Roman Reigns. I just wanted to see what was out there. I was like, oh, how much in the NXT parking lot I can see. I did walk away with a big smile on my face, and I will have more information soon. But if you do have a question that I may not have touched on here that I probably should have done, drop it in the comments below. But yes, I do have some more footage that I will drop at the weekend, so you can look out for that. Otherwise, please do like the video, share the video, subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is me looking at Jey Uso potentially headlining WrestleMania, or at least becoming the WWE champion after his Royal Rumble victory. Come follow me on social media, grinnermind.com/Simon. You can get 10% off all these fitness supplements. I'm a big fan of these. They are what I use when I do go to the gym. Otherwise, Pro Wrestling Tees, TikTok, you know the deal. Again, it's all down there. Just click as much as you can do. Shout out to 2K, shout out to WWE 2K25. Very excited to see how it does play out over the next couple of months. I think March is the release date. But yeah, I just think they're on a roll right now. As long as it's not an absolute roadblock like there was a couple of years ago, which I think they have learned from, I think it's going to be a pretty good time.